let's address some things right away. One, interestingly, so the video that you guys have chosen for me to respond to, which I will start recording now, just so I know I've started recording, is called "The Truth About Trans People" by someone called Icky, and I believe this person is a friend of Finnster. Finnster, of course, is somebody who annoys me to no end because I used to be able to say, well, here's an example of somebody who looks like a woman, certainly more so than the vast majority of trans-identified males I've seen, and yet Finnster doesn't identify as trans. The issue is I believe Finnster now does identify as trans, so it's not as forceful of a point, but it still is a point. Like, for a long time, it was the case that Finnster definitely looked more, and I'm sure like there's like makeup, lighting, blah blah blah, but looked more convincing as a woman than plenty of trans-identified males without identifying as trans. So even if just kind of retrospectively, the analogy still can make a good point. Of course, the point being, just because somebody looks like a woman, that doesn't mean they are a woman. I'm wearing a poppy, and it's just out of frame, and I don't think I can realistically, I think if I, move this down slightly, I guess that's slightly better maybe. So for those who don't know, a poppy is associated with Remembrance Day. I'm not really going to get into why it's associated with that, but Remembrance Day is all about war, how war is bad. You put on a poppy to memorialize the fact that people died in war, and that's sad. I feel like it's one of those things people have takes on. I have 3 takes. One is kind of a counter take. There are some people who say, well, the poppy thing, it's not good. It's not a good thing to do because basically we should just not do wars. Like, what's the point in having this kind of empty gesture of, oh yeah, war's bad, but we're still doing war and blah, blah, blah. Which is a take. I'll be honest, the reason why I wear a poppy is because I'm generally into festivities and doing things that, like involve some kind of change. That's why I always wear Christmas jumpers and stuff like that. As far as I'm concerned, early November, in the lead up to Remembrance Day is when you're supposed to wear a poppy, so I'm going to wear a poppy. I'm going to do the thing that you're supposed to do because why not? But I am aware, for example, I think one criticism of the poppy is that, like, people say, well, nowadays it's actually become kind of hijacked by nationalists. And this leads me to my 2 takes. One, I really think that people who wear poppies, I believe that a poppy should be from November 1st to Remembrance Day or Remembrance Sunday, whichever comes first. I believe, so Remembrance Day is the 11th of November, and I believe that Remembrance Sunday is whichever Sunday is closest to the 11th of November. But yeah, I think that's when you should wear a poppy. People who wear poppies significantly beyond that, in my view, it cheapens the gesture. Because, okay, well, first of all, if you start wearing poppies way earlier, you're wearing poppies in the run-up to Halloween, and I just think that's wildly inappropriate. People are going to be dressed in, zombie outfits and stuff, but, well, are they supposed to be wearing the poppy? Because you've already established we're supposed to. So for me, it's okay, October 31st, you do all your spooky stuff. You dress as a zombie, as a Dracula. Let's be honest, stuff that isn't particularly dignified. There's nothing dignified about dressing up in a goofy, cheap monster outfit. And then November 1st, that's when you enter, okay, Halloween's over, October's over, now we're on to November 1st. This is the time where we're approaching Remembrance Day. That's when you put on your poppy. You're not, again, it just doesn't make any sense because Halloween is a thing, and it's obviously it's kind of almost morbid to associate something that often has to do with death as cheap thrills, which is often what happens in horrors. People die and you're like, oh look, you go to a horror, you want to see people die. To have that associated with war, where death is this massive tragedy, and it doesn't make any sense. There's also this guy, he's a right-wing politician who he literally made a deal out of the fact that he wears a poppy all the time. And I just think, what a twat. I just think that makes you a twat, because what you're doing there is you're, again, cheapening this thing by turning it into a bragging thing. Goodness me. I just, that makes my blood boil. The idea that someone would take this, supposed to be a kind of somber, like, oh, you know, war's bad thing, and whether you can argue it actually like meaningfully achieves that, whatever. But that's what it's supposed to be. And to be like, oh well, I'm just like I'm such a great guy, and it's like also the fact like he's saying it is like because he's like a kind of right-wing populist patriot guy, and it's like, but like really the poppy, it shouldn't be a patriotic thing because it's about how war is bad, and usually patriotism is more likely to lead to war. I'm not saying like don't be patriotic, and I suppose really what I should talk about more is like nationalism, but this idea of like a lot of the time the poppy almost seems to be pro-war, and that's like the beef. So yeah, I mean in general, like, because obviously I'm someone who gets annoyed by Christmas being early. I think that Christmas shouldn't be, like, you shouldn't do anything Christmassy until December 1st, apart from maybe sending out Christmas cards, because you could make an argument, well, like, it doesn't arrive, or like drawing up your Christmas list and stuff, like stuff where basically people maybe need a bit of time so they can get the stuff sorted themselves early on in December. I don't know, whatever. But generally speaking, you shouldn't be doing any anything other than maybe prep for stuff, which is kind of what writing your lists and, you know, your cards and stuff is, before December. But at least with like Christmas isn't, you know, whatever, it's like a fun time, you don't really need to take it too seriously. But again, the fact that Remembrance Day is obviously a very sad, somber thing, decorum, all that, people died, yeah, you shouldn't be doing it obnoxiously early, because essentially that's obnoxious and annoying and cringe for all the same reasons that running, you know, Christmas adverts in October is, except for the fact this time you're doing it about something that's actually very serious and sad. So now you're being obnoxious about something which is really not appropriate to be obnoxious about. Also, I'm just going to say this now, and I'm only going to say this here because I don't think my mum is ever going to subscribe to my Patreon. Even if she did, I don't think, like, at some point in the future, I don't think she'd go back and see this. My mum wears several poppies, and to be honest with you, I think that's kind of inappropriate. Like, November comes around and she's kind of come up with this, like, to me it's genuinely horrific. She buys a poppy every single November, but then she kind of like attaches them all together, so she gets this Lovecraftian eldritch super poppy that's just like, and it like runs down her thing, and like in general, just like aesthetically, I think it's garish and horrible to look at. But of course, also again, compounded by the fact this is supposed to be a really serious, somber celebration. And yeah, like as far as I'm concerned, poppy, yeah, wear a poppy. Soldiers died, that's sad, war is bad, blah blah blah. Maybe some other people are wearing it for weird like nationalistic pro-war reasons, where like actually we should celebrate soldiers, and celebrating soldiers means celebrating war, which is how a lot of people kind of treat you know, like celebrating the military. Like if you're pro-military, you have to be pro them dying for corporate interests halfway around the world for no reason. Yeah, obviously that's nonsense. But yeah, I wear a poppy, but keep it simple. Wear the poppy, just a short period of time, just one poppy, just a simple thing. Because anything else, like I say, it's cheapening it. Anyway, we'll jump into the video now, but I just wanted to say that because it's something I think about whenever I, like, literally at the start of every November, I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to start wearing a poppy, to take this whole, like, Remembrance Day thing seriously. And whenever I do that, I'm always just, like the moment I start doing it, I'm, like, struck by, like, I can't believe people, like, take this thing that's supposed to be this really kind of, like, serious gesture, and they do these things that, like, in my view, completely cheapen it. Anyway, let's jump in.
For you to ease in.
Oh, you know, I didn't actually mention one thing, sorry. There's one other thing I wanted to say. Interestingly, every single time that I'm in the middle of responding to something, I always say, hey, do you guys want me to open up the polls next week, or just continue with this video? And every single time you say just continue with the video I'm on. Last week, I actually started a video called The Trans Panic. And I was like, oh, should I like do the same thing and be like, hey, do you want me to continue with the trans panic or whatever else, you know, blah blah blah. But I was like, to be honest, you know, the thing is, I started the trans panic video because I finished the video I was working on way too early, so I was like, I might as well start this one. But it wasn't a video that was that many people had voted for. So I was like, you know what, I'm not that far into it, and people didn't vote for it that much in the first place, so I'll just open up the polls again and see what happens. Like, I won't even do the whole, hey, do you guys want me to continue responding to it? Because I was only like 6 or 7 minutes in. And it came like last place. It's interesting to me that people always vote for me to respond to the thing I'm currently on. even sometimes when it is a video that I started without it having won the previous vote. But the one time when I do it open, it's just roundly rejected. Anyway, like it doesn't really matter. Like I just thought it was like interesting because like sometimes I do wonder like, someday am I going to start responding to a video and then you guys are going to vote against me responding to it, and I'm just gonna like maybe never even finish it. And that's never happened. But the one time when I didn't specifically say, hey guys, do you want me to continue responding to the video I'm responding to? Yeah, whatever. So yeah, let's jump in.
Into this.
Heard that one before.
Yeah. I'm really excited for this.
It's interesting, like Finnster hasn't tried to do the voice at all. The thing about Finnster, just so we're all clear, is I feel like it's just about the body fat percentage, right? Which is clearly just a natural thing. But it's definitely, because for example, for me, like I'm not going to say that I'm some kind of a super chiseled dude or anything like that. But I think it's pretty obvious. You can just tell, like, there's some major chubby cheekage going on for Finnster, and nothing happening for me. It makes me wonder, that whole buccal fat removal thing, I hope that's how it's pronounced, where women are just like getting all of their cheek fat removed, and everyone agrees it looks kind of gross. It does, to be fair, make biological females look more like biological males, because like biological females, everyone knows they have a higher percentage of body fat than biological males for reasons. Like obviously, they've got like boobs, which are like in general, women are more curvy. Like that's the thing. But yeah, obviously they get the buccal fat removed and suddenly there's less difference. I wonder whether or not like the trans people are pushing that. Like, hey, biological females, make yourself look more like males, and then that way it's easier for us to pass. I don't know. Anyway.
The title is Trans Influencers and the AGP to Trans Pipeline.
Okay, this is interesting. I don't know what this video is about. So this is like a response to a response. I wasn't expecting that.
This is going to be really, really fun. I've never had anyone make a weird 4chan video about me.
I watched a little bit of this and Ashley did.
Okay, so I don't know if this is a weird 4chan video, but I'm responding to, like, I'm responding to this video too, so there you go. Now that's two, but unfortunately this person will probably never be aware of me doing this Patreon thing. I will say, like, the weird 4chan video, I'll be interested to see whether it is a weird 4chan video, because it kind of is almost telling if this person's mentality is anyone who responds to them must be doing a weird 4chan video, because like that's a very specific thing. Like that kind of says more about, like, if someone makes a response to me and I'm like, oh look, it's a weird 4chan video, like, okay, do I, like, again, that says more about me than it does about the person I'm responding to. But yeah, maybe the video actually does have, like, weird, I'd say, like, I don't really know what qualifies something as a weird 4chan video. I'd say, oh, hello, I think my voice is slightly cracked. I'm going to leave that in, you can all laugh at me. But yeah, I'd say maybe some vague sense of kind of right-wing politics. But yeah.
Mr. Metaphysical, or whatever the f*** you were saying earlier.
You're letting him like strawman you there. He changed your point.
There's no good fit. He just, every time I say something, he's like, she just admitted it. What? And
so is that like a flash forward? Because if so, like, this implies it's not a weird 4chan video. Like the fact that they're mentioning things like metaphysical. What I'm confused by is, like, who is this person? Because, like, can I say this? I feel like, because obviously this is a man, because they're talking about Mr. Oh wait, maybe this is like Thomas Bacall. I don't know. I'm just thinking to myself, like, I was gonna say in a moment of arrogance, I feel like I'm the most prominent, if not one of the only prominent, regular creators of content critical of trans identity that has a strong philosophical bent to it. So I'm interested to know who actually is the person who's made this video, because it definitely wasn't me. I think I'd remember that.
Hey, I'm a detransitioned male. I'm going to be talking about egg culture in online trans communities, particularly among...
I actually wonder, see, the thing is, what you got to bear in mind is so I suppose actually the word that I really wanted to use when I was talking about the whole 4chan thing is schizo. That's the key word, isn't it? Which I think schizo, it's a perfectly, it's one of those examples where, like, we can all complain about whenever someone uses a word to describe a genuine mental health condition and just uses it to describe something that's not that mental health condition, like, ha ha ha, I'm so OCD, I like to keep my room really tidy. Okay, that's not what OCD is, but whatever, it's fine. Anyway, but like that term schizo, I feel like it's for better or worse, a really useful word to describe a certain phenomenon, which is kind of like the whole parasocial thing. It's just like people who get way up in your business about, and like this doesn't really happen to me, but they like kind of have all this weird like speculation about who you are as a person and stuff like that. And like that's what I've noticed insofar as I've interacted with kind of the, I guess, the edgy side of the trans thing. And I think like a really good place to find this would be, funnily enough, like the 4chan LGBT server, which I haven't really gone on. At one time I did check it out because I was interested, but yeah, like while there is a lot of kind of people towing the standard line of like trans women are heckin' valid, but unsurprisingly, because it's 4chan, there's also loads of people with all these kind of like weird conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and like how certain people aren't really trans, or certain people are trans and they're not telling you about it. Lots of transvestigating and stuff like that, lots of transing dead people, just all like the weird, crazy stuff of like trans things. And I'm wondering if like this guy could be an example of that. Well, you got to bear in mind, a lot of people just don't care about this issue. So it's like actually the tiny, tiny, tiny proportion of people who care about this issue enough to actually talk about it. I think maybe a high proportion of those, especially on the trans, because you got to bear in mind, the average person who's like affirming trans identity, they just don't care about it. They're just saying, because, oh, I guess it's what I'm supposed to say. So actually, like, yeah, maybe the proportion of people who are affirming trans identity because they really firmly believe trans identity is accurate and it's actually a belief that they've kind of formulated themselves. I think it's likely that a quite high proportion of those people haven't just formulated a generalized belief about the issue, but rather have very specific beliefs about like who is trans and who isn't trans and things like that. And that's why, like, even for example, ContraPoints has courted controversy for saying, you know, like, oh, I don't really like this whole non-binary thing. I don't like the way that some people say they're trans, but then like it doesn't really mean anything in terms of like how they act, behave, and stuff like that. And then obviously philosophy tubers come out saying, oh, I don't think gender dysphoria is a thing. Like most people who've actually, affirmed trans identity in some kind of substantial sense, where they've like theorized about it, has ended up saying something controversial that would, you know, cause some kind of internal division. So they're actually a lot more divided than I think we give them credit for. Again, the reason they don't seem so divided from an outsider's perspective is because most of them aren't actually serious about what they're saying.
Propensity to be sexually aroused by the thought of himself as a female.
Oh, so it's like all trans people are just like a fetish thing. Is
Right.
that the point?
I'm gonna cut in instantly.
Well, if anything, the thing is, it's not all trans people like a fetish thing, because he did actually say this is driving trans-identified males towards AGP. The implication being that some, and to be fair, like I've said this before, some people use the term AGP. This is like less of a thing now. I feel like the term AGP isn't as popular nowadays. There used to be some people who'd use the term AGP to be synonymous with and interchangeable with trans-identified male. So where I would say trans-identified male or so-called trans woman. There are people who like, the thing is, any term you use, like there are people someone on my Discord was like, oh, I don't like using this term trans-identified male because it confuses people, because some people think it means somebody who is identifying as a male in a trans way. And it's like, I can kind of see where you're coming from there. Like like thinking that trans-identified is a qualifier for the male. So yeah, I can understand how that would be confusing. That's why sometimes I just use the term so-called trans woman, because people know what trans woman means, and I'm saying so-called to indicate they're not really someone who's transitioned to being a woman, but there's no like great term for it. Anyway, some people will use the term AGP, and I've always been like, that's stupid, because it's like one of the problems with trans identity is that people identify as trans for all sorts of reasons. Like that's the point. It's not a coherent thing. Like if it was all AGP, in a way, like that would almost be better, because then it'd be like, well, at least I know, like at least we all recognize what it is, and we can kind of theorize about it in that sense. But like one of the points is it doesn't mean anything. Like there's all sorts of reasons why someone might identify as trans. So yeah, I've never claimed that every single trans-identified person is AGP. I do think probably a significant proportion are, but I don't know exactly. I wouldn't want to qualify what I mean by significant.
Cis women get turned on by thinking about themselves in sexual situations. Trans women get turned on by thinking about themselves in sexual situations.
Yeah.
What's the difference? The difference.
Yeah, okay. This is like a thing that like everyone says against the whole AGP thing. Like, whoa, biological females get aroused by thinking about themselves in sexual situations as well. The issue with that is that they're not aroused by thinking about themselves specifically as women. Like, it just seems like, to me, it's really obvious that I could imagine myself like being treated as a woman or whatever. And like that's an obvious thing, and it's not something that I'm particularly enthused by. It's something where, like, personally, like, I'm gonna get, I don't know, like, I'm probably gonna create some controversy here, but I think I'm a very open-minded person, and I can see, like, I can recognize, even in like my own mind, a nugget of what would make somebody be like aroused by that. It's not something I'm into particularly, but even at, like, I can understand it. Like, I guess what I'm saying is, I think if I was really in a situation where I had to like be like aroused by that, like be an AGP, I think there's like a vague like something in the recesses of my mind that I could unlock to be like, okay, you're like, you know, you're in this weird kind of gender bending situation, isn't that kind of sexy because it's like taboo and stuff like that. I mean, like, that's the general thing. I think it's taboo, and I think that's why most people are into it, because it's like, hey, I'm a guy, I'm not supposed to, but I'm being treated as a woman. Like, that's kind of where I think it comes from, but I could be completely wrong there. But yeah, like, I can see that, and like, again, it also seems obvious to me that is different. And like, part of it, of course, is the fact that while I think sometimes women will be in a situation where it's not just to generalize like sexuality as heterosexual women, but specifically a situation where they really like being treated as a woman. And I think you could, so the analogy I've always made is the bimbo fetish, right? Which, again, like bimbo fetish, I feel like usually that applies to the men who are trans. But there are women who, for whatever reason, bimboify themselves. So they intentionally like bleach their hair blonde and, you know, wear loads of makeup and maybe get lip fillers and like all sorts of plastic surgery and stuff like that. Like, to me, that is the obvious analog to AGP. I think the confusion here comes from the fact that, like, personally, I'm not claiming that women don't experience anything that's equivalent to AGP. My argument isn't trans-identified males experience AGP, therefore their identities are invalid. Like, even if it was the case that every single woman tomorrow said, you know what, I've realized I'm just totally into the idea of being a bimbo. You know, I'm just gonna, all of like my feminine attributes, my boobs, my lips, my butt, I'm getting a BBL, breast implants, like double, quadruple Ds, lip fillers, bleach blonde hair. I'm just like totally leaning into it because I just want to be, I feel like my voice is cracking multiple times today. How embarrassing. Anyway. Yeah, I just want to be the most feminine. Like, even if every single woman did that, okay, like that wouldn't really mean anything, right? Because it doesn't like prove they're not women. Like, I think the issue is, like, a lot of people think that AGP means not a woman. And I mean, it does by definition, but the point is that's not like the evidence for someone not being a woman. Like, it's worth noting, if every single trans-identified male was AGP, or if 0 trans-identified males were AGP, it wouldn't really change my opinion on that much. Now, maybe for some people, like, AGP is this huge thing, and obviously maybe for them, it would be this, you know, like, therefore, whether or not a specific person is AGP, and whether or not AGP is equivalent to or has any kind of analog in something found in biological females, maybe that's really significant. For me, it's not. So that's kind of just where I would come from with this issue.
Is just saying, like, that's not a woman, they're a man. So them being turned on as a woman is wrong. But they are a woman, so they're just turned on.
I mean, look, also, I suppose I should say, there are biological males who I think have AGP who aren't identified as trans. So, like, that kind of just gets to the point. It's not really about, like, AGP disproves trans identity or anything like that. It's just that AGP is a factor to consider in why some people identify as trans, which I think it is. I suppose, like, that's the key thing. Like, with women, no woman identifies, like, even if a woman has like a bimbo fetish, that's not why she identifies as a woman. Like, that's obviously not even a consideration for why she identifies as a woman. She identifies as a woman because she's biologically female. Whereas with a biological male, well, clearly their biology isn't why they're identifying as a woman, so maybe the fact that they massively fetishize being treated as a woman, maybe that could be the reason why they're identifying as one. Like, that's basically the situation. No matter how much a woman appears to be fetishizing the idea of being a woman, that's clearly not the reason she's saying she's a woman. But if a biological male is fetishizing the idea of being a woman, that's probably much more likely to be why he's identifying as a woman.
And that somehow transitioning is going to solve all their problems.
I don't think that transitioning solved any of my problems besides the trans ones.
Yeah, pretty much.
I still had to take ADHD medication years later. I still
have to go to therapy.
Yeah, I think it's not so much saying like, oh, it will solve all your problems. It's the fact that it's a very easy solution which isn't addressing the root cause of the issue. Because obviously if you dislike your body in some way, I think we recognize ordinarily the solution there isn't to change the way your body looks. Obviously that's not the solution we present to people who have anorexia, for example. What I prefer to talk about, instead of like saying, well, look, trans-identified people, look at how many problems they have and the fact that trans identity hasn't solved their problems, that's kind of the issue. What I prefer to talk about is the detrans people and the steps that they're taking. The fact that usually when you encounter a detrans person, not always, but a lot of the time, it's quite likely that they've actually, in addition to detransitioning, have also started to address certain vices where they're meditating or eating healthy or exercising regularly. And the reason why they've done that is because the transition thing was not really addressing the root cause. So once they abandon that and they detransition, they then start to think, well, what is the real cause? And they realize it's kind of lifestyle things that are best solved through all these other means. Obviously it doesn't surprise me that that transition people continue to have problems because, well, obviously they're not actually interested in addressing these problems, otherwise they wouldn't be trans, basically.
But that's because, I am more comfortable as a person.
Yeah. You could have done all the fixing and this would have still remained.
Yeah.
If you don't know...
See, again, the problem is, how do we know that, right? This is the issue I have. It's kind of crazy to me that people... See, to be fair, I wouldn't make definitive, statements, but it's... I wouldn't say, oh, yeah, definitely. I know I kind of did say this. I was like, oh, well, you wouldn't be trans if you fixed all these issues. I don't really think that with certainty. I just think it's obviously the case that maybe if you fixed all these other issues, you would find that actually you wouldn't have the need to do all this trans stuff. The same way I talk more broadly about in society, if we fixed a lot of mental issues that cause people anxiety and depression through societal fixes, again, people wouldn't feel the need to identify in a way that's contrary to their biological sex. I think that's possible. Am I saying it would definitely happen? No. Am I saying it would happen all the time? No, but maybe it would happen the majority of the time? Yeah, that's it. I think that's the issue. To say definitively one way or the other, definitely it's all about these other mental health issues, and if you fix those, then you'd no longer identify as trans. I don't think anyone should say that, but I also think what trans people always do, which is say, well, no, even if I fixed all these mental health issues, I would definitely still need to be trans because it's 100% an innate thing that there's nothing I can do to stop or control. I think that's unreasonable to be saying.
Trans women get turned on seeing themselves in a feminine setting, being a woman, and femininity. So does that mean all trans women are lesbians? What about the straight trans women?
I don't know.
What about trans women that only like men? Or, obviously the argument makes no sense either way. Even if you are a hardcore lesbian trans woman, it does not make sense.
So it's attraction to femininity and envy of femininity, such that you want to also be feminine yourself. That is driving the majority.
Yeah, I will say this, the one thing I've never really got about AGP is the fact that people do seem to assume it's a lesbian thing. Or, obviously I should say lesbian thing, where it's essentially only heterosexual males are AGP. And to me, I don't really get that because, I've never seen anything like that. Everything I've seen that I'd be when I was saying I have some sense of familiarity with this idea of people fetishizing being a woman. Everything I'm aware of there, I think it's all been homosexual, right? The thing that I know is that on 4chan, there's as all good sentences start. They used to do. I don't know if they do it anymore. I still occasionally frequent 4chan, and I've not seen anything like this recently. But they used to do this thing which was threads where you role played that you'd taken a pill, and the pill switched you from being a male to a female. And, out of curiosity, let's say, I would kind of scroll through it and see like what's going on here. And yeah, like I say, it's not something that is particularly interesting to me. But what I can say is it was universally about dudes. So it was about dudes who'd been turned into women being banged by dudes. So it'll be like things like you like this is like the thing. I don't know if I'm like remembering this or if I'm just kind of making it up because I'm like I can imagine what the scenario would be. It's like it would be a caption. Like so it would be like a GIF or like a WebM as they say of a woman being had sex with, but the caption would be like when you signed up to football, even though you're a weak little beta nerd, all the football team bullied you. But the real big moment where they bullied you was when they slipped the magic sex change pill into your warm-up drink and then they banged you. Like that's it. Like that's the scenario. And like when someone says AGP, that's what I think about. Like I think about a guy, jerking off or whatever to the idea of being turned into a woman and then banged by a bunch of dudes. And maybe I'm like wrong about what it is, because then everyone else talks about AGP and they always kind of relate it to being lesbian. Again, lesbian in massive quotes. In that, so basically, the idea of a guy imagining himself as a woman but still having sex with women, and like he's imagining himself as a woman because he's really attracted to femininity. And it's like I've got to say, like I don't actually know where that is, like where that's happening. Like I would say that I'm someone who I've been around enough on the internet that any kind of weird sexual preference or whatever, I have some familiarity with it. Like, people are into feet. I've seen like I know about like Wiki Feet, that place where people just post celebrities' feet, and that's not because I went and actively sought it out. It's just through osmosis. Like sometimes when I admit to like a familiarity of like a weird sexual idea on the internet, I worry that people will think like that I'm being defensive. Like, oh yeah, I found out about this, but it's not like because I'm like into it. But then I remind myself like there's like so much weird stuff on the internet that I genuinely do just know about through osmosis. Like it's not that I'm into it, but it's just, how can you not find it out? I mean, again, assuming that you're at least kind of on some like, because maybe if you don't go on 4chan and for example you've never ever watched any sort of pornography in your whole life, which I might be about to upset some of my more radical feminist audience here, but I have in the past consumed that content. I kind of like always have just assumed that's an open secret, but I've never actually said it. But yeah, like you have to be aware of this stuff. But to be honest, the AGP thing as like a lesbian thing, again, every single time I'm saying lesbian, I'm just saying it because these people are imagining themselves as lesbians. So that's what I mean when I say as a lesbian thing. Like I've never seen it like that. For me, when someone says AGP, yeah, I'm always just assuming, oh, you mean like a gay guy who's attracted to men and wants to be back. There's another heron flying. Like that happened last week. Anyway, yeah, a gay guy who's attracted to guys who wants to be banged by guys, by big alpha men. Like usually it's got like the kind of like the bullying thing and stuff like that. Like usually from what I've noticed, and this is why I don't relate to it because I'm a real alpha, it's like guys who are in some way insecure about their own maleness and they kind of view themselves as like beta nerds and whatever else. And it's like they want to be banged by real men. It's like, yeah, these real men are going to bang me because I'm just a sad little... I mean, it's kind of like when you really think about it, like, man, this is like, there's so much going on here. But like, that's the thing. There is so much going on there. And that's why like I'm aware of it because I found it. Because you don't have to look that far. I mean, maybe you do. But I have not had to look that far to find examples of, yeah, like guys who are kind of insecure about their own masculinity, don't have much confidence in their ability to project masculinity, or perhaps much interest in being masculine, and that they've internalized that as like they're betas and they're going to get banged by alpha males, And just to drive that point home, it's not just that they as the beta are going to get banged by the alpha males, because look, if you're an alpha male, you're not gay, you're not going to have sex with a dude, even if he is a beta. So how do you make the alpha males that are going to bang you still seem alpha? Well, you turn into a woman, and that way, like, you're a man, but you're actually like such a beta male loser that you've turned into a woman, and now you're being like banged by the alpha males who, like, to me, that's what I've seen. I've never ever in my life, like, I don't even know where it is. Like, this idea, did they just keep it secret? Because that's the thing that's always confused me. That it's like, if you, like, I'm so aware of what I just described there, of like men who have weird ideas about their own masculinity, and they actually kind of almost fetishize other men. And like, that's the thing, like, there are, like, that's such a thing, right? Like, guys being gay. I know, it's like, I've just discovered it. But like, there's, I don't know, like, maybe he watches my Patreon, maybe he'll know who it is, maybe if you are on my Discord, you know who it is. But there is this guy on my Discord who, look, some of the people on my Discord, I think they're a bit weird. I'm just going to say that, like, if you're on my Discord, maybe I like you, maybe I think you're a bit weird, maybe I like you even though I think you're a bit weird, but I'm sorry, I'm just going to have to say it on the record now. Some of my people on my Discord are a bit weird. And there's this one guy who, like, posts, he'll post, like, videos of dudes, like, working out and stuff, and, like, how they're, like, alpha males, and, like, oh, man, like, they've got great genetics, and blah, blah, blah. And it's, like, in my head, I'm like, this guy is so gay, and, like, not in a way that I'm, like, bothered by. Like, I don't care if he's gay, but it's just really funny to me that he, like, posts, like, these videos of, like, alpha male dudes, occasionally, like, enough times, again, that I've noticed it. And he'll say, like, oh man, like, these guys are, like, over 6 foot, like, they're, you know, like, it's kind of like what the, like, Steven Crowder thing, this is what peak masculine performance looks like. And it's like, like, obviously that's the thing. There's, like, these guys who they're so obsessed with being alpha males, and, like, the idea of being an alpha male, that they are just 100% gay about it. Or just like, oh man, like, this guy's an alpha male, look at him. And it's like, there's no way these people are alpha males themselves, because if you're, like, an alpha male, you're not spending all your time, like, posting pictures of, like, other dudes' muscles online, being like, oh, look at how alpha this person is. So yeah, I think there's something gay about it. But again, it's all gay. I don't get this whole, actually, there's biological males who are attracted to women and they want to be women themselves. Like, I can't, and again, it's weird because, like I say, I feel like I can understand where a lot of sexualities are coming from, but I just can't get my head around that being like, what I'm into is women, and therefore I want to look like a woman so I can be some kind of, like, unconvincing lesbian that, like, it just, I don't understand it. Anyway.
Of trans identification in trans women today.
The majority?
The majority.
Holy.
So yeah, I wouldn't say the majority. I really need to make some more, like, pace through this. This is getting ridiculous, okay?
Binary, you know, I am a woman. I've always been a woman type thing.
So, bro, Asher, pull up the clip of me on live stream really recently of me verbatim saying, if I talk to someone about, like, transitioning and stuff, like, I'm gonna say, like, oh, I don't really feel like that or something. Like, they'll go, like, I know I've always felt like a woman for my, like, entire life and everything. I always had this, like, sort of feeling in the back of my head. I ain't got that shit at all. StreamYard.com is sharing your screen.
Yeah, like, that's it. Like, people have, like, that's the thing. One of the reasons you can't make these definitive statements is because people are going to be different. Like, yeah, some people say, oh, I'm a woman, I've always been a woman. But some people can say, no, I feel like I'm a woman, but that's not, like, how, like, for me, it's, like, you know, a new thing or whatever. Like, that's the problem. People do have all sorts of different opinions on this because the whole point is that it's a nonsense idea that is kind of an artificial ideological construct imposed on a massive variety of human feelings.
Yes, you already know that you are trans. You already know.
That is indoctrination.
Okay, oh, hello. Just about to play an advert.
Build wealth every day with trade.
Build wealth every day. The thing is, I'm not a consumer. I'm really not, to my credit. So it's kind of interesting the things that I get recommended, like, advertised to me, because essentially the YouTube algorithm is trying to work out how to advertise to somebody who just pretty much never buys anything. See, on the one hand, I feel like you could say, well, actually, you know, maybe, fingers crossed, that could actually make some people not be trans, because someone will be like, oh, maybe I'm trans. And if they see a video, it's like, you already know if you're trans. Wait, was it? You already know that you're trans? Oh, that you're trans. Okay, that's not so good. I was going to say, if it said you already know if you're trans, I'd be like, well, I don't already know it. I'm a bit kind of doubting about it. So that probably means that I'm not trans. Like, if this was saying, like, there's a way of saying this that would be better, which is essentially, you already know if you're trans. So if this is something where you're like, oh, I don't really know if I'm trans, well, then in that case, it's probably just a phase. Unfortunately, saying you already know that you're trans, it's going to be like, yeah, I think that is kind of encouraging people to think, oh, I'm trans, when maybe they're not, right? I don't think you should tell people how they feel. I don't think it's a very good look generally.
For any possible person who's trans identified, there exists a counterfactual possible world such that you could run the clock back in time and that person could have managed their gender dysphoria,
That's an interesting claim. I think I'd probably agree with it. I mean, there's a counterfactual where basically just the whole idea of trans doesn't exist. So even though they might have the same feelings, they just wouldn't conceive of it in that same way. Whereas, of course, yeah, you contrast this with truly innate things like, I mean, race, for example. I mean, yeah, sure, we could conceive of race in a different way, but like we'd still recognize the material reality of you know, people looking different because they do. So yeah, like I think I would probably agree, but I'd say to wildly varying extents. Like there's some people who I think could have avoided being trans with like a 5-minute conversation. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are people who might have been trans, but because they watched one of my videos, they then realized, oh wait, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm sure I've stopped at least one transition with my YouTube presence. I'm sure J.K. Rowling has stopped many transitions, just through like her general influence. But then there are other people who obviously are much more committed to it. And maybe there are some people who, no matter what, they'd always say, no, I want to do this like trans thing.
There was like, there's a whole lot of nothing in it.
That's just yapping. It's
I mean, all he's saying really, and he said it in a needlessly complicated way, to be fair. All he's saying is that every single trans person possibly could have not been trans based on like changes in their life. So essentially he's just saying trans identity comes from like social and personal factors that are changeable.
Why would I have done that? Because I went with the difficult route of like, maybe I'll transition, and now I'm happy.
Well, you're wrong.
No, I don't really buy this idea that like transitioning is the difficult route, because it's, sure, you've got this like physical thing, but often, I mean, everyone should know it's harder to overcome mental obstacles a lot of the time than physical obstacles. So yeah, I don't buy that transition is harder.
There's no objective, true, perfect, objective, clinical diagnostic
Objective
that will clearly say that this is a true transsexual and this is just a gender non-conforming person.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this before. Essentially, there is no way that someone can like basically prove that they're trans. Like pretty much what he said, and obviously I contrast this with being gay. Like if someone thinks they're gay, okay, well, we know what being gay means. So it's like, oh, you think you're gay? Okay, well, here's a hot, strapping young man. Or old man, don't be predatory. But yeah, a hot strapping man, let's say. And do you wanna bang him or like do something with him? Like, you got anything that you're into? And if they say no, not really. In fact, I'd much rather get jiggy with that girl over there or woman, then that is like, that shows they're not. I was gonna say that's good. That shows they're not gay. With the trans thing, there is no equivalent to that. It's not like, well, here's, because again, like in this world, that like, or in trans ideology, not every single trans person transitions. Not every single trans person is gender non-conforming. Not every single trans person even has like some people saying, oh, you don't even have to have gender dysphoria in order to be trans. So what's even the thing you're pointing towards when you say like, when you want to test if someone's trans? There's nothing.
It's easy. Don't worry. Your girlfriend will tell you.
Make a joke about it.
This is.
Oh, damn it. He let that one
That
pass.
could have been such a good dig.
God damn. He's able to recognize
1
humor.
point. He gets 1 point for that.
The key.
That was Finnster, by the way. And basically, he just admitted that this Icky, his girlfriend, like, groomed him into trans identification.
Yeah, so that's it. I don't know. See, I'm not sure because I don't want to like. I feel like generally speaking, you probably don't want to like take jokes and be like, "Oh, look, this is the truth," because generally speaking, I mean, the issue is like I will say this: like sometimes you got to bear in mind, like if someone jokes about something, that probably speaks to it not being true. I'm sure that at some point, if I've not already, at some point surely I've got a joke about the idea of like, oh, the reason I talk about the trans issue is because I'm secretly trans and I'm obsessed with trans people and I'm attracted to trans women and blah blah blah, and that's why I talk about it all the time. Like that's like an obvious joke for me to make. I don't know if I've ever made that joke before, but I'm sure you can imagine I would say that. Like, you know, if someone said, "Hey Michael, why do you talk about trans issue?" I'm like, because I find ContraPoints really hot and it makes me angry and confused, so I make videos about it to cope. There we go, I've said it now. The problem is obviously like it. Yeah, someone could come along with, "Oh, you see, this is King Critical admitting that he actually only does this because he's got some kind of sex feelings about." And earlier on in that video, he went on a big rant about how a big ramble about how he kind of gets the idea that men might like the idea of being women and being had sex with by other men. What a gay little transphobe. I don't know.
You could just be a gender non-conforming man who has autogynephilia.
I could, but I'm not. I could also be a fucking chicken, but I'm not. I get that he's not talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like this whole like you already know thing. I don't know if I found it that interesting as a question because it's like it's like saying you already know if you are a chicken. There we go. That's the example, right? Where the answer is, well, that's an absurd thing to say because, well, you're not a chicken. So the fact you're not a chicken means that to speak about whether or not you know that you're a chicken, it's like, well, it doesn't really work because how can you know something that's not true?
And I'm giving him too much credit. He is trying to say that there is nuance to this. Not every.
Okay, Ray Alex Williams is a male detransitioner, so that makes sense. Like that doesn't surprise me because I know people who kind of talk about this whole. Like, again, the kind of internal politics of the trans thing, they're likely to have been involved in this trans thing in general. Like I say, for me, like, I don't really have any opinions about, like, the internal thing. Like, I'm not really that bothered over who's an AGP, who's a true trans, who's HSTS, who's, you know, whatever. Like, I can't really think of that many other times, but, you know, all that kind of stuff. I find it interesting, but, yeah, it's not something I care about in terms of who's who.
Sure.
Who watches that video is probably going to be trans or something, right?
It'd be very different if you came into this and you were like, "You're trans. I don't care if you don't think you are. You're transgender."
So the thing that the video I'm making is for people.
So that's not really true. It's like basically saying, you know, the reason why I can say, "Oh, you know that you're trans," is because anyone watching the video is going to be trans. But it's like, well, no, it could be people questioning whether they're trans, in which case, well, like essentially, the one person who's not going to be watching that video is someone who knows that they're not trans, because obviously, well, they're not going to be even thinking about it. But the main people that matter, which is people who might be thinking they're trans, but they're possibly not, and they're the people who are going to hear you say, "But you already know that you're trans." So yeah, you're just being a bit disingenuous by saying like, well, you know, the only people watching are people who are actually trans. It's like, no, like obviously not.
For people that already know, but make jokes that they're not because of whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just reckless to tell people that they already know that they're trans. I know I said I didn't really care about it, and it's kind of like, again, I guess because I think this is like a bigger like social issue and whatever. Like, there's always going to be people who go down this route when they shouldn't, for as long as we kind of continue to normalize being trans. And I suppose, I mean, look, I say I don't want to like unnormalize it. I don't want like people who are trans to be treated as like freaks or whatever. But I mean like legitimize it as like this is a wonderful, fantastic thing. As long as we continue to do that, there's going to be people who go down that route when they really shouldn't. I guess like the issue is you're not saying like, well, here's the other things you could be in contrast to being trans. Like you might just be a gender non-conforming person who isn't trans. You might just be a lesbian woman who is like maybe butch, because a lot of lesbian women are butch, but that doesn't mean you're a man. Like, so that's the thing. If this actually said, well, you know, you're wondering if you're trans. If you're trans, you should already know that. but here are the other things you could be instead, so consider whether you'd be these things. But if you just say, oh, you're thinking you might be trans, well, you already know you're trans, and not saying anything else, well, that's the issue.
So if they're not trans and they watch this, they will simply move on.
I will say that's something I think about. Like, I do find myself nowadays often thinking, like, when it comes to kind of paternalistically trying to be like, oh, we need to make sure we don't say things that push someone in a particular direction or whatever. At some point, people do just have to take responsibility for their own actions. I was thinking about that recently. I can't think what the context was. I think it was something to do with like feminism and like, you know, women and whatever. But essentially I was saying, look, I think I know what it was. I haven't mentioned this yet, and I'm not really going to talk about it now because whatever. But the Julia Long J.K. Rowling drama. So for those who don't know, so a woman was sexually assaulted by her husband, and then Julia Long said, just a reminder, you don't have to be heterosexual. And then J.K. Rowling said, hey, you know, if someone's just been sexually assaulted by their husband, saying, hey, you didn't have to do this, isn't that helpful as like a response? And I kind of, you know, I did actually have a little conversation about it on my Discord. But one of the things, so the person was like, well, you know, it's useful to remind, sorry, I'm going to say this in a way that kind of makes you sound like, like I'm giving them a voice, and I hope this voice doesn't make it sound like I'm being like mean. Like sometimes I want to do a voice in order to indicate that I'm imitating someone else, but I worry in imitating them, it might sound like I'm mocking them, but I'm just going to do whatever voice seems right. And if it sounds like I'm mocking them, I'm not. They were like, well, it's useful to tell women that they don't have to be heterosexual, you know, just so they know that that's an option, that, you know, being heterosexual is not something they have to do, which is confusing for two reasons. One, because I thought sexuality was supposed to be innate. So actually, if you are heterosexual, you do have to be heterosexual. If you're lesbian, well, you don't have to be heterosexual, but you do have to be lesbian because you're a lesbian. You know, are we going down the route of saying people can unlearn their genital preferences? Like that's the first thing like I find kind of weird about that. But secondly, genuinely, like, I'm sorry, but if someone in the year of our Lord 2024 doesn't know that they can be like in the Western world, like sure, like Iraq or whatever, I don't know, but if someone like here with like all the gender woo nonsense going on and like, you know, the pride flag everywhere, and yeah, sure, part of that pride flag is the trans thing, but also another part of it is the gay thing. So it's not as if the gays aren't getting a look in. If like someone needs to be told, hey, you know, you don't have to be heterosexual, I just have no like sympathy for them. Like, I'm sorry, but like just take some responsibility. Like the idea that anyone's saying, oh, you know, yeah, I'm a woman and I'm in a really bad heterosexual relationship. And, you know, part of the problem there is that I didn't even know that I had the option of not being in a heterosexual relationship. Like, I'm sorry, I have very little. I mean, I have sympathy for you. You're in like a terrible, bad relationship. You know, that sucks. But I don't have any sympathy for you as far as like, oh, you poor victim. You just didn't know that this was an option. But yeah, it's the same thing here, right? In a way, you know, like if someone's going to say, yeah, I'm trans and I really regret it. I mean, I don't know. See, in some sense, I kind of feel because it's like, well, people don't really like. There isn't much focus on the issues with it. So I'm slightly more sympathetic to someone who says, well, I transitioned, but it's because I was like told that I knew I was trans and I wasn't told the alternatives of what I could be and stuff like that. I do understand that. Like certainly more than someone saying I didn't realize that it was like I could not be heterosexual as like an option, which I think is just ridiculous for someone to say that. Like obviously you don't have to be heterosexual, but yeah, there are many people like children growing up right now who aren't told that they have the option of not being like trans basically, or told like that, you know, that they can be a butch lesbian and maybe they're not trans, or they can be gender non-conforming, but again that doesn't mean they're trans, things like that, or aren't told about the experiences of detransitioners and stuff like that. So yeah, I do understand that idea of like, you know, when you talk about somebody knows something, maybe you are kind of luring them into something, but yeah, I also think at some point like we don't have to worry too much about this kind of stuff, because really what's more important is that people just take responsibility for their own actions. So I'm not saying like that we shouldn't be slightly aware of it as a problem, but really the big solution is, yeah, like I say, encouraging people like, hey, you know, if you're going to be trans, you need to think this through. I've already reached my time and we've only got 8 minutes through this video, which I know I kind of knew that was going to happen because I was aware of like times I was talking about other stuff. No matter what, we're going to finish this in part 2. You know, I'm just might power through it. But yeah, we'll do like one more little section, just because I feel like I haven't really done enough yet. But yeah, we'll continue.
You don't have to claim that you were born in the wrong body. You don't have to claim that you're transing anything.
You don't have to do anything. You do not have to pay taxes. You do not.
That's not that funny. Yeah. Sure, you don't have to do this stuff, and like, yeah, well, you don't have to do anything. But the point being made is, you know, there are people who've been in the same, like, if you're someone who's like struggling with like your relationship to gender, there are people who've been in the exact same situation as you, and they've been able to overcome that without doing this stuff. So yeah, like, you don't have to do anything, but the point is here, you really don't have to do it in order to be happy. And that's kind of the point being made. And again, this is the point being made by a detransitioner. I don't know if like he identified as a detransitioner in this video, and like whether they acknowledge that, but that's like an important like bit of context here. This isn't just like some kind of ignorant guy on the sidelines being like, hey, you have to, this is someone who's like, no, I actually did this whole transition thing, and I realized it was like a problem, and you know, like not okay for me, and that there were better options. So like that's obviously some important context. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna end the video now. Yeah, we didn't make it through quite as much as I would have preferred, but ultimately, at the end of the day, yeah, we'll finish it in part 2. Like, basically, if I need to set strict limits for myself, I will. My kind of assumption is that, I mean, I don't really think this video is that like full of content. Like, obviously, most of their objections, like, these aren't like trans theorists or anything like that. So a lot of it's just been me kind of riffing on unimportant things they've said. So yeah, I could easily power through. But we will pick this up next week. Presumably, I mean, yeah, I will do the whole, hey, do you guys want me to continue responding to this video thing? And who knows, maybe this time the continuity candidate won't win, just as technically speaking, the continuity candidate didn't win last week. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next week. Bye!